Hey everyone, I'm super excited to be sitting down with Rory Richardson. She's one of the most fun and exciting voices in AI right now. What's so awesome about Rory is that while on paper her specialty is how AI is transforming the way we code, every time I speak with her, we end up having these fascinating conversations that can go absolutely anywhere. When I sat down with her last year at the Infotech Live conference in Vegas, we talked about everything from the perfect toaster to using AI for Dungeons and Dragons. I do want to hear about what's going on with AI and whether it's going to turbocharge or kill coding, but honestly, I'm excited to see what else she's going to throw at me while we're at it. Let's find out. Hey, Roy, just before we get too deep into it, I wanted to tell you, I don't know if you remember from Live and in Vegas, talking to Joel, who's my boss, but he was, I don't know if you remember him, he was a huge fan of yours and completely true story. When we started this podcast, he said, Jeff, it's two people I want on my podcast. I want Bill Gates and I want Rory back.
Okay. That's a little freaky. Just saying, that's top billing. Like, I have to admit, y'all's production for your events is like next level.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're excited. We've got actually the next one coming up in a few months in June. But yeah, no, we have fun, and we were so glad that you could be a keynote there last time. So I wanted to ask you on that note, Roy. It's been it's been a few months since we last spoke. I think like since September, which is like, I don't know. It feels like we're living in dog years right now, both in terms of like technology and society. So I wanted to just start off by asking, in that time, like, what's new in your world as you look at the world? What are you most excited about? What are you most worried about?
Okay, that's first of all, I agree with the dog years. I feel like, and we used to joke, like working at Amazon, you have to measure it in dog years because it's such an intense place to work. I've gone from dog years to like fruit fly. All right. Like, there's been a progression because you're right. Everything changes with generative AI every week. And especially in the developer experience, which is is wonderful. The progress that the technology is making is like every week is leaps and bounds different and more advanced. I would say there's two things that have happened in my world that have made me super happy. One, we launched the Q command line interface that's using Sonnet 3.7, and it is fabulous. Like, it's the week over week fastest, most adopted piece of the umbrella of Q developer. And the things that I see people that are able to do with it is absolutely astounding. I mean, anecdotally, my own team are building, mini apps just with the command line interface. So no code, just using the command line interface. And they've decided to try to out app each other. Here's some examples of the apps they are building with the command line interface. Number one, a Rory decoder. They built an app to translate me.
Wow.
Another person on my team built a natural language interface for creating Dungeons and Dragons maps for his campaigns. And they're really cool.
So we're out with two examples. We already have the full spectrum.
Yes, we're really improving workplace productivity over here.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think I last time I talked about this, but I'm going to double down on it. We are paying people to play now, because to play is the highest cognitive load and the most creative and humanistic aspect of our work. And it's a shift, like culturally, because, Amazon, we pay for results. But our results are experiments, which means play. And it's a mind shift, because the most valuable thing that humans do is something new. That,
right.
Like, nothing else can replicate that, not generative AI, not anything. So that's number one. Number two is there has been a shift in the market since we last talked that I think is super interesting, and that's the rise of the IDE. So the IDE, your developer environment has not changed in I don't know, 10, 15 years. Like VS Code and JetBrains have been fairly static. The plugins haven't, but just the IDE has. And what we have seen is the rise of new IDEs that are optimized for AI. And that has been fascinating because one of the things that these new IDEs are really great at is collaboration. Now, collaborative is not the first 20 adjectives I associate with a developer.
Right.
I mean, I think we
Maybe see them 20.
I think we basically invented object-oriented programming and languages in order to not talk to each other. Like, you have this thing to do and I have this thing to do. And eventually, if we'll give each other the right commands so that they will talk to each other. Well, with these AI-powered IDEs, you are collaborating with agents, right? So then it's like having junior developers all around you helping on one project, which is a very different style of coding than I learned how to code, which was, very focused, but kind of isolating, Mindscape thing. But now instead of like composing music for one violin, you're composing music for the entire orchestra all at the same time, all at once. It's a different flow of getting stuff done. So, people have been calling it vibe coding. I don't know if you heard that.
I've heard that.
Yeah. I have mixed minds about it because
what do I think about vibe coding?
Again, I'm old. I feel old because I'm like, I don't get it. So being able to get into the zone and orchestrate instead of author is sort of the quintessential part of vibe coding. Now, I was talking to one of our leaders here at Amazon, and he was like, vibe coding. But isn't it nice to know what you're doing? Like, isn't that nice? Which cracked me up because I don't think he's wrong, but I don't think he's completely right either, because you still have to have that artisan mindset of creating something out of the ether that's your developer mindset. See, I think you do sort of know what you're doing, but it's enough of a cognitive shift when you're in that mode that I think that it is representing a major shift in technology that's happened in the last 6 months.
And I love the orchestra analogy. That one really resonates with me, and no pun intended there with music. I'm curious. I'm curious too. Like when I think about this, and I think about the way people treat it, like, is this similar to like when photography started versus like painting? Like, I feel like people, it's not art. You just took a picture, and it's like, okay, like yes, there's technology involved, but there's still artistry involved too. Or is that like way out of left field or not the right metaphor?
I'll have to think about it more if that one works for me. I'll just have to think about it a little more, because the metaphor that I use the most is differential equations, which, by the way, this joke, this joke actually plays with our core audience, right? Because I swear every engineer took DiffyQ, right? And especially old people like me, when I took DiffyQ, you weren't allowed to, you had to do everything manually. And one DiffyQ equation when you were taking the test would be like 4 pages, right? As you're solving through differential equations. And then eventually there was that magic day that the professor let you have a T65 on the test. And you were like, what? What? Now, did the T65 kill differential equations? Nope. People still take it. And knowing how to apply differential equations,
right,
that's still there. The creativity of understanding how to apply different concepts, that never went away. What changed was that the results are way more reliable, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and
I've always felt right. I always felt sorry for the TAs because, look, I was really good at math, but I was terrible at arithmetic. And so within those 4 pages, one arithmetic error would just mess up your entire thing. And so the TAs would have to go through and give you partial credit. And I feel really sorry for them. But once we applied a T65 to that, the cognitive load of mathematics shifted. And I think that's what we are witnessing right now is we're basically giving developers a development calculator that accelerates and improves the quality and accuracy of the code, but it doesn't actually change computer science. It changes how we are relating to the task. We're really attacking muck, right? Not the hard stuff, not the creative stuff, not the risky stuff or the sexy stuff of development. Yes, I said development sexy. But the boring parts, like the syntax of a language, no one cares anymore.
Yeah.
Like syntax is boring, in my opinion. But I think that's shifted. And I think how we are going to relate to all technology has fundamentally shifted. And while we see the most impact within developer tools and access to technology sort of thing, I think what we're going to see over the next 2 years is it's going to affect every persona within your software development lifecycle forevermore. And that means the things that we are already able to do with Q affecting DevOps, operations, cloud architects, and eventually DBAs. Like, there's something for everyone, which means that it's going to accelerate and democratize how we relate to technology for all time and space. And I got a 15-year-old kid. And I think about these innovations through his eyes, that this is the normal, right? This is just normal. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. So let's get to the second part of your question. What scares the crap out of me? This scares the crap out of me. Because at every inflection point where you are accelerating and democratizing, you have to build the plane as you're flying it, and you have to build the guardrails at the same time. I mean, think about cars, right? Once cars started hitting the road, we didn't have speed limits. We didn't have traffic laws. We had cars. That's what it feels like right now, is we can go super fast. Wouldn't it be great if we had some traffic laws?
So just reflecting on that and the traffic law, like, yeah, that's it's fair, right? Like, it's always the regulations are always like 1 to 2 steps behind like the technology. But I want to come back to what you were saying about like kind of what it means to be a developer and how much this is changing and how this is going to change again like through the next 2 years. In your mind, like, what does development look like in 2027, 2028? Like, what does it mean to be a developer once we kind of go through this shift?
I think having a Babelfish for all languages will change the languages themselves. And for those of you who didn't read Douglas Adams, a Babelfish was a universal translator you stuck in your ear. If you are able to, and most developers know like 2 or 3 languages. But the thing about those 2 or 3 languages is they're usually in the same language families. It's like, yeah, I learned Spanish and French. Whereas what this is going to be able to facilitate is new development architectures. And one of the, in order to be able to explain that concept, think about like COBOL. COBOL is a function-based language. It's not object-oriented at all. Like, you ascribe the BCPU at the function level, and then the messaging broker is the neural network of COBOL. So the very architecture of the language is unique compared to object-oriented. So it's not about the language translation between COBOL and Python, right? It's It's the architecture of the language itself that's really challenging to move between. Generative AI smashes abstraction layers, right? It compresses them. So the diversification that we've seen of computer languages since there was a computer language, from assembler on up, I really think that's going to compress because those abstraction layers, are performant against different pillars or matrix. But I don't know if that's entirely necessary if you compress the abstraction layers. The other thing that's going to change for developers, and really speaks to the democratization piece, is a lot of studies that we're seeing as far as the impact of generative AI on this particular population is about it getting your most junior noobs more performant. That's where we see like the biggest impact change. Not really in your master veteran developers, but really in the noob population. So that democratization piece is really fascinating to me because it's opening the aperture of who's going to be able to relate to the technology. I mean, I gave the example of the command line interface, and those are all no code, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when my kid is applying for a job in 27, is it going to relate to language in the computer languages in the same way? Probably not. But the role of invention, context switching, synthesis, those higher order ideas that make humans super valuable are going to be even more valuable. There's going to be a stronger delineation because you can't just show up and do a 9 to 5, because a lot of that mucky stuff that is just, clocking in, clocking out is going to be automated. So that means that we have to shift what we value most in each other and in our work, because of that democratization piece and that automation piece is going to be hugely impactful across all the job families.
Right. So I'm very much of the same mind. And there's a lot of things I want to talk to you about right now, Roy. There's a lot of directions I want to take this in. But one of them is I want to come back to this notion of play that you mentioned before, because to me, this ties back in, right? Like, as we think about people free from the muck of development, the play becomes more important. The innovating becomes more important. The mindset of like, what is the art of the possible? How could we do this better? Kind of takes center stage. And so I'm curious, and maybe at Amazon specifically, or if you have any, client examples, this is sometimes a tough mindset to get, like business folks or non-developers, maybe call it management, into. Like you say like, hey, we want to play. And they say, that's cute, but like, we've got a quarterly number to hit and you've got a release schedule, get back to work. And so my question is like, is that a challenge? Is that tough to sell? And how do you get the ecosystem of leaders who, God bless them, are doing their own jobs and want to see results? How do you get them to give you permission to get out of the grind and be able to think longer term and bigger picture?
Yeah. In 2024, I think every CFO thought they could lay off 40% of their developers.
Right.
They were like, we have developer productivity. Turns out we haven't fired anybody yet.
Yeah, and turns out that they actually never really understood the value of a developer, right? If they thought they could.
They had no idea what their developers were doing. No, they thought
you could write lines of code, right? You just type on keyboards all day.
Yeah, 40 hours a week. Turns out, it's more like 4 to 5 hours a week. Like like that's just a component of what they do. I think the revolution is happening to management as well, and they're feeling it just as much. So I have 2 examples. One, back in, I don't know, February, January of 2023, I had asked my son to start doing his homework with chat. And then very quickly, the school was like, you can't do chat. You can't use chat for your homework. That is cheating. The schools were telling my kids this was cheating.
Yeah.
So I had a parent-teacher conference. I'm very popular at school. I'm not. where I was like, how many hours per week are you grading papers? Because I can show you how to do that a lot faster. Would it be cool if you were able to create a lesson plan specifically for the behavior characteristics you see in the class? Like, what if you could just research and analyze the characteristics that the kids were exhibiting and then curtail or customize your lesson plan according to what the behavior characteristics? I can show you how to do analysis much faster. And what they were hearing was they can get to happy hour sooner. And all of a sudden, their opinion about generative AI changed because it was real to them, right? So in other words, it's not about control. It's about just finding the value in the right lever. The same thing, by the way, happened to me personally about the same time, because we had these mandatory docs that we do in Amazon in Q1 across the entire organization. And they're confidential. And there's one team that I was managing that had all of their docs done on time, and they were excellent. And I'm like, what did you do?
Something's wrong.
They were like, oh, we use chat. And I was like, first of all, why aren't the rest of you doing this? Second of all, I don't think that's AppSec approved.
No.
And third, holy moly, we just had a huge cognitive shift in management. Even before we fully felt the effects for the developer audience. So I don't think it's about our management giving permission, because when you talk to a CFO and you give them a natural language interface to do ad hoc queries and analysis using, things like Q for QuickSight, that accelerates their monthly business reporting review and gets them to happy hour sooner. So there is, it is literally affecting every job family that we touch. And so it's only the really old stodgy people that are very get off my lawn, you can't use generative AI, that is going to be left behind. It's not, this is just the new normal across everything now.
Yeah. So old stodgy people. We had when we last spoke
So let's talk about the old people.
Let's talk about the old people, Rory, because when we spoke last, you were saying, and you did say you didn't want to be ageist, but after you said that, you said that you found the biggest indicator of willingness to adopt generative AI tools was age, and that younger people tended to be much more willing to experiment. Older, stodgier people tended to, be more set in their ways. I'm already a master coder. I mean, two questions for you. Is that still holding true in the time since we've had that conversation? And if it is, what are the implications for that? Do we risk having kind of a bifurcated workforce where you've got half of people, or some fraction doing it the new way, some fraction not coming along for the ride? And what do you do about it? You just have to wait for them to retire, or is there some way to take a happy path?
One, it's not just ageist. It's because I don't know, being stuck in your ways is not necessarily just age. So I was hyperbolic in my grouping.
Fair
Me, hyperbolic. Who knew?
That can't be right. That doesn't sound like you.
But there is definitely a divide. And there's definitely a lot of FUD with certain populations that are risk adverse, or they don't want to try a new way of doing things. But I don't think the divide will last, because humans are wonderfully lazy. We're just lazy, right? We don't do work for the sake of work. And when you have part of your workforce that's doing something faster and is more efficient, and the other one's like, no, I want to stay late and do this manually. No, that just doesn't happen, right? And again, I'm going to date myself here, but remember when we were all switching to email. Like I know you don't because you're a sweet young thing, but okay. In the 90s, just culturally, humans were shifting to email as the primary communication method for business instead of like faxes or typewriters or whatever. It became email. And the question was like, does this destroy writing? When you have when you're switching to email. And there was a lot of, senior executives that would want all of their emails printed out. I think Warren Buffett still does, but yeah, that didn't last. It was inefficient.
Yeah.
Right? And
yeah,
it just doesn't last. Like humans adopt new technology because we're just wonderfully lazy people. I don't see that is mind you, this conversation has shifted pretty far away from technology, and now we're into armchair sociology, which I'm not qualified to answer, but I can see how humans are interacting with technology and different trends. But I don't see anyone being left behind in this, mainly because it's so darn easy to use, right? It's not like you have to learn a new programming language. It's all through natural language. And that means that the adoption has been transformative over the past 18 months because it's just so darn easy. I was going to say one other thing, and this is probably the most controversial thing that I can possibly say. I really hope I don't get fired, but Bezos is very famous for saying there's no compression algorithm for experience. So you remember when I was talking about the younger developers becoming more performant? What if there is? What if there is a compression algorithm for experience? And what if this is it? Because we now have the ability to do pattern recognition on a really, really large scale, which prevents mistakes. And that's what your most experienced developers do.
Right.
So maybe we have. Again, Bezos, don't fire me.
So that's a really interesting point, Rory. And I don't know. I mean, maybe it's controversial, and I'll knock on wood that you're still employed there next week. But
thanks.
When I talk to people on here, one of the things I hear more frequently is that it's actually junior staff that are most at risk of being disrupted by AI, in the sense of like, oh, well, we don't need junior devs anymore because AI is just as good a coder as a junior dev is. And your approach is different. What I hear you saying is actually they have the most to gain because you can now get from a junior to being seasoned faster than ever before. So just to put a fine point on it, like if you're in your son's cohort and you're going to be going, I mean, I'm not suggesting he's going into CS, but if you're going into comp sci, should you be concerned, or is this like a more exciting time than ever?
Okay, whether or not I'm concerned or not as a mother doesn't matter. No, not really. I mean, because this is happening, y'all. Like, you can be fearful about it or you can be happy about it, but it doesn't really matter because it's still going to happen. Like, this is the new normal. I think what I try to emphasize with my kids is grit and creativity, because I don't think either of those things are going away as necessary for like being happy and successful for the rest of your life. So grit, creativity, those are still very important. The most human things possible. As far as like being concerned, what keeps me up at night, or what I'm most concerned about is it is bad actors doing really naughty things with this technology. And white hats not being able to create and remediate fast enough, because this is like napalm. That's probably a bad word. This is a massive accelerant in both scenarios. So our ability to detect anomalies across a large data set, like say, I don't know, logs, massively improved, right? Because LLMs are fantastic of taking massive amounts of data and then analyzing it super quickly. So our that white hats push has been greatly accelerated. And so is the black hat activities that you could do. It's a massive accelerant. So the thing that keeps me up at night is just I want to enable and infect people's imagination for doing good things, because only then we'll have guardrails that actually protect people. I talk about my son a lot in the context of generative AI because, well, it's fun to experiment on your kids when it comes to technology. And the metaphor that I'm going to give you is really apropos to generative AI. The other day, he came into the kitchen and he smelled like gasoline. And I'm like, why do you smell like gasoline? He's like, I made rocket fuel. And I was like, okay, yay. Did you light it? And now he realizes there's something up, and he's like, no, of course he lit it. I did not have a no rocket fuel rule in my house, right? That like I didn't even know I needed one. Well, that was not in the manual, okay? So we had to come up with a new rule in order to accommodate like future experimentation, which is if you have a spark, you need an adult within 10 feet and a cell phone.
Right.
Okay? Like there needs to be a backup plan. I'm not saying no spark. I'm just saying backup plan. So it was about a guardrail, then a discrete rule. And as we think about generative AI, it's that same sort of mentality. You can't have specific rules. Like instead, you've got to have guardrails for good sense, more so than specific traffic laws, right? We're not traffic law stage at all. We're at, hey, don't run over people. That's a good rule. I mean, that's a good rule. That's specifically what you need to do in order to ensure that you're not running over people. Those discrete rules, I don't think we're going to get to anytime soon, mainly because of the wildly creative aspects of what you're able to do with the technology.
Right. So have you seen, I'm curious, and we're getting dangerously close to mixing metaphors here, but yeah, what have you seen rocket fuel situations with black hat actors in AI that you can share either firsthand or secondhand that you're like, holy moly, like that was creative. Like, I didn't know you could do that. This is starting to open up like big concerns.
To be honest, and this is just because I think I'm in my own little bubble. I haven't seen that a lot. I think one of the biggest concerns I hear from CEOs and CTOs is the injection of malicious code, because somebody said, oh, I thought this coding suggestion was great, so I put it in. And
yeah,
and they're terrified of it, but I haven't seen the that happen.
right.
Really? Because here's the deal. If a developer wants to put malicious code into anything, it's just not that hard. I mean, you could get malicious code on Stack Overflow, cut, paste, you're done. Generative AI is just an accelerant either way. And if I had a developer that was, putting in malicious code, do I blame generative AI like I would a human? No, I fired the developer, right? I mean, like it's still, this is not we use the word agent a lot, and it annoys the crud out of me because no one seems to have a consistent definition. But the thing about having agency is something we usually ascribe to humans because they are responsible and they have choice. But we're not at that stage yet with this technology at all. And if you have a human that is using this tool to do naughty things, you still blame the human. Okay, we don't blame the technology. I would still fire the developer for introducing bad code. It's just this, there's a shift, right? From, like I said, authorship to orchestration. That doesn't mean that you have given up responsibility and ownership to technology, that we're just not there. That would be silly. And the CFO example that we were talking about, if the CFO reported bad numbers because he used generative AI, we would fire the CFO. We wouldn't fire the tool.
No, that's a great that's a great case in point to bring it home. The CFO case is still very interesting to me, and I hear about it and I imagine it, that there's still CFOs out there that are saying like, but when can we fire 40% of developers, right? Like the tools are here. When can we fire them? What's the best antidote to that? Like what's the best response to help CIOs better understand, or rather CFOs better understand what developers actually do and where their real value is?
I asked them if they use managed databases. Like a managed database like RDS, 70% of what a DBA does is super boring. I know because I was a DBA. Super boring, like patches and backups and failovers. This is not information architecture. This is majorly boring stuff. Managed databases like RDS do those things, 70%, right? And so my question to CFO is, like, when you switch to your managed database, because everybody has managed databases somewhere, did you fire 70% of your DBAs? And they were like, no. So you still have the same number of DBAs as you did in the past? And they're like, yeah. And I said, what are they doing? They don't know. And I tell them what they're doing, because what happened with managing databases was a cognitive shift, that these people that went to school and spent their lives in information architecture are free to do information architecture. In other words, and so what we saw was a democratization of data science on a massive scale and an accelerant for analytics. Data's getting cleaner. Like information's more accessible. Insights are driving the company forward, not just, a cost center that is like the tax that you pay for information. There was a shift in responsibilities once we gave graphing calculators to DBAs. We're going to see that same shift within all of our job families, I think, over the next 2 years. And what they actually do is probably going to change as well, meaning you're going to not see things see this area as like just a cost center that you have to maintain old code. What if we don't maintain old code anymore? 70% of a developer's time is spent maintaining old code. If we were able to retire all of that tech debt and get 70% time back, what's going to happen? I don't think we're going to be static and we'll just fire 70% of the developers. Because what we've seen in various technology innovations is that just doesn't happen. Just humans change, they evolve, and they do something different. Not stay static with the same demands on the business. There's been no evidence of it. People evolve.
Right. So I'm thinking about the technology itself, Rory. And it's like we talked about this already, and it's a truism that like the pace of this is just like completely out of control, right? Like as you said, it's like week to week here. As that's happening, are you worried that like the adoption curve is falling farther and farther behind? That, and by the way, I'll share my story a little bit, which is when I talk to business leaders around here, they tend to be like, oh yeah, like AI seems to be this hot new thing, and in the past year it's gotten really good, like and probably a year or two from now it's going to do amazing things. And then when I talk to the CIOs and CTOs around here, they're like, a year to 2 years? Are you kidding? Like this thing, it's weekly. Like it's like 3 months from now, we're going to be in a completely different world.
Right.
And we're like struggling to stay on top of that. So, first of all, are you seeing that as well? And second of all, like, what do we do about that as, organizational leaders, but also as, for, technology organizations like Amazon?
I recently saw an analyst report, and I wish I could remember this guy's name, and so I could give him proper credit. but my brain is fried. Um, where it did an analysis by job family of the impact of at serving people in different job families about the impact of generative AI. And you're dead on right. Like the ones that thought that that generative AI was going to change their life the most were technologists. And it got me thinking about that a lot. And I think the reason why it's disproportionate by job family is that we saw the most stark shift in the effectiveness of these tools with technologists was because I think most of us started with code generation and first. And there's a really good reason why we started with code generation. It's because code is really consistent, right? There's no adjectives, and it's highly structured language compared to English, right? So applying large language models onto a corpus of code that is already very, very, very structured is having exponential results. So I think it is easier for it to be real for the technologist and for them to see the impact, because when you look at, the earliest tools in 2023, like GitHub Copilot, and for us it was Code Whisperer, that's where it started. And I still think that workload is probably the absolutely most mature of tools that have incorporated generative AI natively than anything else, because it was the first. I think that's going to infect and go viral across the other job families. They haven't done it yet. I mean, I was talking to a title company. I mean, title companies basically just process contracts, right? And what they wanted to apply generative AI to was, we want it to write contracts. And I was like, but that's the family jewels. That's literally what you guys do. Why would you want to apply it to the highest cognitive load and the most valuable humanistic thing that your company does? Instead, why don't you apply it, to archiving, like being able to read PDFs and search and index your treasure trove of data that you have in your previous contracts in order to, learn from different patterns that you have there. You see, that's pretty low risk, right? Because that hasn't been done before, and you'd be able to analyze massive amounts of contracts, not create net new contracts. So I think where a lot of people get kind of the wrong end of the stick is they want to go to the hardest, riskiest, sexiest thing in their life and try to replace them. But where we're seeing the most success is when generative AI is applied to the muckiest, most boring parts of stuff you don't want to do anyway, or that's repetitive, where, foundational mistakes are made. And for whatever reason, the other job families, outside of technologists, are jumping to sort of the wrong conclusion of what they want to apply generative AI to first. And so they're not having the same effect. So if there's any advice I would have for any job family outside of my technologist crazy brain is, don't get generative AI to make art. It's not really art then. Instead, apply generative AI to all the stuff that you don't want to do so that you have more time to make art. That's where we need to shift our understanding. We're not trying to replace humans. We're trying to accelerate and democratize. And that's a shift in mindset that we got to get other job families to understand outside of just the technologists.
Right. And that was like a real light bulb moment for me last time we talked too, is that people complain about AI is going to do all the creative stuff. It's like, well, then don't use it for the creative stuff. Use it for the stuff you don't want to do. And I was like, yeah, it is good at that. That's
Right.
a great mindset. Yeah.
people ask me sociology questions all the time. It's like, oh, what are you worried about? Or what are you concerned about? Well, I just don't think like that. And instead, the glass isn't half empty or half full. The glass has 4 ounces. Okay. What you choose to do with those 4 ounces is kind of up to you. But worrying about the potential of what's going to happen with those 4 ounces isn't particularly useful. But going, 4 ounces. Well, it would be better if we had 5. Use it as a tool. That's what technology is. These are all just tools, and they're fairly neutral until humans get involved.
Right.
Humans are the defining factor. And what if I was a therapist or into the social sciences? I wouldn't be working for Amazon or in doing what I'm doing. So I'm probably not the best person to be qualified to have those discussions. But I'm more in it's 4 ounces and this is what it can do and this is what it can't do kind of mindset.
Right. Spoken like a true engineer.
I'm actually not an engineer. I think I was just born an engineer.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that about you. I thought, but you had a math background, or how did? No.
Okay. Again, it's gonna make me sound super old. I grew up in a really small town in Paris, Texas. And in Paris, Texas, was kind of late to the technology game. So by the time I went to college, I went to the University of Texas at Austin. And you got the course descriptions, and it was a massive book. And for me, I was like a kid in Candyland. I was like, ooh, anthropology. I'm going to study anthropology, or I'm going to study advanced chemistry, because I love to learn. I was just that kid that I always just had an insatiable appetite for learning. So I think I graduated with literally twice as many hours as I needed for my degree. Because I just kept taking courses.
Just it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I just love learn. In my household, even though they were rednecks, I mean, my household just had an attitude that nothing was unknowable. And maybe it was because we just grew up so remote that we have a very can-do attitude to literally everything. It's like, hey, the car broke down. Well, you should go figure out how to fix the car.
Yeah.
Or, this is a computer. You should go figure out how that works. It's just like I have a mental model that nothing is unknowable. Which means, and I have a personal beef when I'm interviewing candidates. If I ever get a candidate that says, well, I'm really not technical, I'm like, that's like kiss of death for interviewing with me, because I'm like, that's just you're not born technical. You're not born.
Well, it's a lazy answer, right?
It's not measurable either. It's like saying, well, I'm not literate.
Yeah.
What? That's not a thing. There's just stuff you know, and there's stuff you don't know yet. That's it. Those are the only 2 categories we're allowed in life. There is no, and I have this similar, and by the way, this rant does relate to generative AI, because when people say, like, oh, I don't know, I'm not really, techie, or I'm not really, that's not a thing. There's just stuff we know how to do now, and there's stuff we're going to know how to do tomorrow. There's not a person that is one thing or another. This is just there are some things you're going to learn faster than others. Fine. But that's where the grit comes in. Like, if you need to know this thing, whether or not your brain works that way or not, you need to freaking learn it. Like, if you have an alacrity for languages, great. If you don't, and you've moved to another country, too bad. You're going to have to work twice as hard, but you're still going to learn it.
Yeah.
That's just human.
Yeah. Well, and with generative AI, it just seems like it's less of an excuse than ever, right? Because it even takes less grit to answer a lot of these questions.
Yeah. That drives me absolutely crazy, because it's more about how fast you can learn, not if. It's when and not if.
Yeah. Well, and that just really resonates with me. And just a quick aside. From my experience. So when I was in college, I actually used to be a guitar teacher. That was kind of like one of the ways I made my way through college. Great gig, by the way, really good gig. But But it was funny because you have all these students and some people, and I'm sure you've encountered this. Some people, oh, I'm not musical. I'm not musical. I don't have a
Yeah.
for it. I'm not musical. And some people like didn't have that. And what it came down to when you had students week after week is the ones who got good were the ones who practiced, right? Like,
Yeah.
like forget what you like, what mental model you have of yourself and what you can and can't do. Like, it's grit, right? Like, put in
Yeah.
the time and you will get good. And do some people maybe get good 10% faster, 10% slower? Maybe. But if you want to be good, keep practicing and show up. Exactly.
You had no idea how much that resonates with me because I was told my entire life I was tone deaf. Like that was a physical deficit. By the way, there is no such thing as tone deaf.
No, of course. Yeah.
I didn't, but you're told your entire life you're tone deaf because you're like, hit this note, and you're like, and it doesn't, and so for whatever reason, I got a burr in my saddle that I wanted to learn violin when I was in college. Okay. I don't know, like violins has no frets, so you are constantly tuning your violin, right? Which means you can't be tone deaf, right? In order to play the violin. So I sweet talked my way into a college level violin course. I had never played the violin before because
Wow. Good for you.
no, I'm just obstinate, okay? So I get into this class and this professor is like, "You're tone deaf." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And so what he did is like, "This is a pitch pipe. You've got to figure out how to do this." And I just kept trying until I finally got it. And then I got the T65 of the violin, which by the way, I didn't know was a thing. And it's an electronic tuner. There's a thing with a graph. And then you just match it. And then you learn, and then you teach yourself how to hear different tones because you have a graphical interface for if you're sharp or flat. And I was like, wait, so everything I was told growing up about that you're a math person or you're not a math person or you're tone deaf or you're this is other BS? It is. It's total BS. We are wads of elastic clay that can literally do anything. And the idea that you were limited in your brain is absolute BS. We were taught that as kids, but it turns out it's not true at all.
Hey, Roy, I wanted to say a big thank you for coming on today. This has been a really, really interesting conversation. I was going to say we covered a lot of ground, but even saying that doesn't cover the fact that we worked in Pride and Prejudice and I'd be able to a conversation that was supposed to be about, Amazon Q and generative AI. But I had a really interesting time, lots of insights. And I really appreciated it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy these conversations.